Hi all, welcome back to our YouTube channel. I'm here with our tutor, Nick Mecikalski, and we're here to talk about his experience attending Vanderbilt University. Thanks for joining, Nick.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
So let's start off by talking about your major at Vanderbilt and what it was like to study that at Vanderbilt.
Yeah, so I was a theater major at Vanderbilt, and I was also a computer science minor. Um, Theater is not like what Vanderbilt's known for. If you know anything about Vanderbilt, they're known for their medical school, for their economics department, maybe poli-sci. So the theater department is pretty small. I ended up really liking that, though. I went into Vanderbilt sort of knowing that I wanted to do theater in some capacity, but I really fought being just like a theater major for a while for all the typical reasons. I think it doesn't seem like a major that's going to make you a lot of money in the future, et cetera, et cetera. But, when I realized that was what I really wanted to do, that was what I was spending all my time doing. I was like, I'm not going to like be in computer science for real if that's not what I'm doing in my free time. If I'm just taking the classes to take the classes, then I'm not actually dedicated enough to make it a career. So I said, let's look at where I'm actually spending my time and be a theater major. So yeah, the department's pretty small there. But I like that because, I was about as involved in the department as you could have been. I did like 15 shows over the course of my time there. I was able to somewhat specialize my major. And then by my senior year, I got to sort of make the whole experience what I wanted it to be. I got to like do a thesis project that I decided I wanted to be a one-man show. So I like wrote and starred in and directed myself for my thesis. Because by that point, my like professors knew me so well. I knew them so well, and I could kind of, make the experience of what I wanted it to be. So no, I mean, I wasn't, it's not a BFA program or anything like that, but I would much prefer this over, some programs I hear where, you have a great name attached to it, but you only get on stage once or twice, a year, if that. So yeah, that's kind of my plug for the Vanderbilt Theater Department.
Yeah, that's a really good point and definitely something to consider. You mentioned professors. Can you tell us a little bit about professors at Vanderbilt? It sounds like, at least in the theater department, they're accessible. What is it like across the university?
Yeah, I found it very accessible across the. I mean, in my computer science classes as well, and just sort of my general liberal arts classes. The class sizes, other than a couple 101 classes I took, tended to be relatively small. By sophomore, junior year, I'd probably have classes of like 20 to 30 people. By senior year, when things get more specialized, I mean, you get down to like 10 or fewer. So even in the classes that are outside of your like major discipline, you get to know the professors quite well. Everyone has office hours. Everyone encourages you to go to office hours. I remember I took a class on immigration, which had nothing to do with my major, and I ended up going to that professor's office hours a bunch and just kind of getting to know him. So, I just found across the board, people are very connected to their students.
Awesome, great. Speaking of students, what are the students like at Vanderbilt?
Yeah, students across the board, I would say, are some of the most driven people I've ever met. Now, maybe the stereotype of a Vanderbilt student is that they are they push themselves to the limit, maybe, and stretch themselves too thin. I think especially when I got to Vanderbilt, it became clear that was something that there was sort of there was a culture of doing that, of just like signing up for everything you can. You could get sucked into these, maybe like vortexes of like, well, I got to prove that I have done more than everyone else and have, pushed myself harder than everyone else. Really, though, I mean, that's like, I'm not really the norm, I don't think. Especially as I got into junior, senior year, you come to realize that everyone's sort of, even if in the beginning everyone is kind of signing up for everything just to try things out, everyone sort of like falls into their groove, and rather than spreading themselves very thinly across like 5 or 6 clubs and organizations, they generally find like 2 to 3 things that they can just dedicate themselves to very fully, which is where I found myself as well eventually. So yeah, I think the community there always like pushed me to do more, always pushed me to do better. I'm the friends I made there, I'm still friends with now, and still push me to do better. It's definitely like a community of people who, you know, yeah, just push themselves to grow constantly, which I loved.
Awesome. So all that said, what type of person do you think should attend Vanderbilt?
Yeah, I think, you know, in terms of like the Vanderbilt like person, it's somebody who doesn't necessarily, I mean, well, I'll put it this way. I think like you can be a lot of different types of people to go to Vanderbilt. I think, if you come in and you know that you want to go pre-med, or you know that you want to be in economics, then Vanderbilt will welcome you with open arms and say, great, we know exactly where you want to go. You can do that. But also you can come in and be driven, but not know what you want to do, right? I think a place like Vanderbilt, you can get sort of stuck in feeling like, oh, if I don't come in knowing exactly what I want to do like everyone else, then I'm just going to fizzle away. That's not the case at all. Vanderbilt very much tailors its curriculum to helping you find your major, find your passion maybe while you're there. And even if you do come in knowing exactly what you want to do, I would say like you need to be the type of person who's open to exploring, because the curriculum is going to push you to do things specifically that are outside of your maybe comfort zone, maybe just, outside of your area of expertise at all. They really subscribe to the sort of, liberal arts philosophy of that a full education is a diverse education. And I would say, you do not have to be scared about coming in and not knowing which way you want to go. I didn't. And you don't, I don't know if it's still the same now, but you don't have to declare until like the middle or end of sophomore year. You don't have to declare your major till then. So you have quite a bit of time to just sort of play around. And the sort of like the liberal arts requirements on top of that, Vanderbilt does a thing called AXL, which stands for academic excellence in liberal arts education, something like that, and which essentially stands in for your gen ed requirements. So rather than everyone having to take literature 101, the classes fall into, every class in the College of Arts and Sciences at least falls into a certain category, and you have to take 3 math and natural science classes, 3 international cultures classes, 3 humanities and creative arts classes. But because you don't have to take specific classes, those things you can do to satisfy those requirements can be from a wide range of topics. So you can really take that elective that you've always wanted to take, and it will, also push you toward graduation. It won't just be like an extra thing that you have to do on top of the classes that you already have to take. So yeah, because of that, it really supports like people who either both know what they want to do and people who don't. That was a long answer to a short question.
No, that was fantastic. Very thorough. Is there anything that you wish people had told you before you came to Vanderbilt? Anything that like surprised you while you were there?
Yeah, I do think it kind of goes back to what I mentioned earlier. I do wish someone had told me like that doing 2 or 3 things really fully is more useful than doing like 6 or 7 things halfway. And specifically for anyone who's like maybe, about to apply or has just gotten into Vanderbilt. I remember the summer before I went, like I got in the mail, the course curriculum or the course catalog, on top of just a ton of information about like there's some 500 like student organizations on campus, and these stats that like 87% of people join a club or something. I don't know what the exact numbers are, but it's I just felt even just sitting at home reading all this stuff, I felt this huge pressure to like find my community as soon as I could when I got there, and to do as much as I could. And I do wish someone had said like, it's okay. Like you don't have to come in like, just joining everything, signing up for everything. You'll find your people, you have time. And, if you're not completely stressed and overwhelmed every day, that's actually a good thing. Like you don't have to do that to be successful at the school or anywhere. So yeah, I do wish someone had sort of said that to me. So for anyone out there, that's me saying that to you.
Yeah, that's excellent advice no matter where you go to school. Thanks for sharing that.
Yes.
Great. Is there anything that you brag about most when you talk about Vanderbilt to other people?
Yeah, I brag about the food, and because I mean they do have the quality of food is very good, but I think what's special about Vanderbilt is the amount and the accessibility of food. It sounds so silly, but like in my dorm, which has actually now been torn down to make a even better dorm, but in my like junior senior year dorm, we had one of there were many of these around campus, these like kind of marts that you just go in. It's like a convenience store essentially. You find these everywhere, and a lot of them are open 24 hours. You just like we're never far from like a snack or a meal or something. And you could get like so many different kinds of things. There's a sub place in my building, like on the card. It was just you could get with your meal plan. There was a pho restaurant, a Vietnamese restaurant, like down the way. It was so I brag about the food a lot.
Awesome. That's an important factor when you're looking at colleges, is how good the
Yeah.
food is.
Yeah.
Great. Is there anything that you would change about Vanderbilt?
Yeah. I mean, I think, and this is something that they've worked on quite a bit, both while I was there and after, is their, equity, diversity, inclusion initiatives. I think while I was there, they just hired a like full-time director of diversity and inclusion. And in the time since, the staff has expanded a bit. I do think I would like, if I could, I would allocate more resources to, to those sort of initiatives. I mean, Vanderbilt, like so many universities, most universities, right, was founded in this like history that is, checkered to say the least. And there's a lot of work to be done to kind of, sort of move on past that. And there are, many like centers and organizations on campus that are spaces for, queer students of color. But I would, a lot of those are somewhat understaffed, and as much great work as they do, I know that like the people are kind of pushed to the limit there. So if I had the money to donate, I would probably put it into those arenas, to hire more people, allocate more resources, and ultimately, provide as much support as possible to the students of color and then the queer students who go to Vanderbilt.
Awesome. That's great to know. Switching gears a little bit, I think we'd be remiss to talk about Vanderbilt without talking about Nashville. So can you tell us a little bit about, the campus itself and its relation to Nashville, and how students kind of use the city in a way as part of their college experience?
Yeah, I mean, Nashville, I go back there every like few years. I absolutely love it. And Vanderbilt itself is placed like right in the center of the city, essentially. You're not sort of on the outskirts. You literally walk off the campus and you're on West End Avenue, and downtown is kind of walking distance away, not really, but I mean, it's essentially like a 3-minute drive or something like that. So, you have just about like you could do just about anything you want on a weekend. And in terms of kind of interacting with community, where do I start? There's so many things that you can do to like be part of the Nashville community. I was a member of the Curb Scholars for one of the years that I went to Vanderbilt, and they're located essentially on Music Row almost. And, so like some of the activities we would do is just walk over and get a kind of private tour of some of these recording studios and things like that. Not to mention just being able to like volunteer in nearby communities. Nashville has a very robust immigrant community. So in addition to, offering kind of classes that, like the class I took on immigration that in part dealt specifically with Nashville immigration, there's just a lot of opportunities to, volunteer for organizations that help those communities and things like that. I really did feel like I got to know a lot about different parts of Nashville while I went to Vanderbilt. No, I mean, the Music Row, yes, but also, the less touristy parts as well, which is kind of what I was looking for. So yeah, I feel like Vanderbilt is very much rooted in its Nashville home.
Awesome. Along with that, can you talk a little bit about the Southern culture and potentially Greek life and how that might fit into that culture as well?
Yeah. So like there is Greek life on Vanderbilt's campus. I don't remember the exact numbers, but it is like slightly less than half of students participate. So it's not, if you, I guess, know about like the Greek culture at a place like the University of Alabama or, Auburn or, things like that. There's, I would say like the Greek life is very visible, but it's not sort of as big of a force on campus as it is in some of those places. People come to Vanderbilt from all over. And while it is a Southern university and, especially like living now in New York for a while, there are definitely elements of the culture there that are distinctly Southern. I would say like in comparison to other Southern universities, it doesn't necessarily fall into the same sort of, it doesn't necessarily fall into the same categories as a U of A or something like that. So yeah, I mean, there is not much pressure on campus, I think, to join Greek life. Some of my friends did, I did not. And it's just what I hear from other schools where it is such a bigger deal that there's like a lot of maybe pressure to join. I just did not feel that here at all. And yeah, and there are also like, in terms of the Greek life organizations on campus, I know like they sort of run the gamut. Like they're not a monolith in terms of, the culture you would find and the community you would find in one, fraternity or sorority versus another. The fraternities and sororities are pretty distinctly different. So even if you do want to join, I feel like you will find your people there. Yeah.
That's super helpful. This entire conversation has been just really, really helpful. Just one last question for you before we go.
Yeah.
If you were a high school student looking to apply to Vanderbilt, what advice might you give that student?
Yeah. This, and I don't feel like this is necessarily unique to Vanderbilt. I feel like this is sort of a like college admissions advice in general, but I would really, like in your essay, the part of the application where you really get to show yourself, I would really lead into something that is unique about you. I mean, yes, you need the high test scores and all of that, but Vanderbilt is very committed to like creating a diverse freshman class every year, and I would say like the more you can stand out in that application essay, the better chance you have, because I mean, you need the high test score. Everyone has the high test score, right? So, I wrote about, I'm a playwright, right? And at least for Vanderbilt, like, I think what probably helped me was that there's, not many playwrights applying to Vanderbilt. Like I said, the theater department's not huge. So, kind of knowing that, I sort of use it to my advantage to say, hey, I would like to come to your school and study something that not a lot of people are studying. And while I have no idea what actually got me into the school, of course, no one really knows that, I feel like that was the one part of my application that made me stand out really at all. I had clubs on my application and things like that, good. But I think if there's something that pushed me, that caught someone's eye, it's probably that unique piece of information. So that, and again, that's not Vanderbilt specific at all, but I would just reiterate that that essay is super important.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I cannot agree with you more. That's great advice no matter where you're applying. So Nick, thank you so much for your time. Listeners, thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time. Bye.
Thank you.